What if one of the greatest heroes in modern fantasy was inspired by one of the oldest gods in European mythology? When people think of Gandalf, they picture an old man with a long grey beard, a wide-brimmed hat, a travelling staff, a mysterious wanderer whose wisdom often seems greater than his power. But long before Gandalf walked the roads of Middle-earth, another old wanderer travelled the world. His name was Odin. Today we're exploring the fascinating connection between Gandalf and the Allfather, asking just how much of Tolkien's greatest wizard was inspired by the chief god of Norse mythology. Tolkien and Norse mythology. Excuse me. To understand Gandalf, we first need to understand the man who created him. J.R. Tolkien wasn't simply a novelist. He was a professor of Anglo-Saxon language and literature at Oxford University. He spent much of his life studying Old English, Old Norse and medieval literature. He read the Poetic Edda. He studied the Prose Edda. He was deeply familiar with the myths of the Vikings and the Germanic peoples. In fact, many of the names used in The Hobbit, including Gandalf itself, come directly from the Old Norse poem Volupsa. So when Tolkien created Middle-earth, Norse mythology was never far away. The Wanderer. One of Odin's best-known disguises is that of the Wanderer. Rather than always appearing as a mighty king seated upon his throne, Odin often travels the world disguised as an elderly traveller. He wears a broad-brimmed hat. He carries a walking staff. He hides his true identity. He visits kings and ordinary people alike, testing their wisdom, courage, and hospitality. Sound familiar? This image is remarkably similar to Gandalf. Both characters appear as old men wandering from place to place, quietly influencing the course of history rather than ruling from a throne. Neither seeks glory, but both prefer wisdom over brute force. The staff. Both Odin and Gandalf carry staffs. For Gandalf, the staff is an obvious symbol of his role as a wizard. For Odin, the spear Gungnir often fulfills a similar symbolic role, but in many artistic depictions, inspired by his wandering form, he also carries a long staff suitable for a traveller. In both cases, the staff represents guidance, authority, and wisdom more than physical strength. Wisdom above strength. Neither Gandalf nor Odin is defined by muscles or weapons. Their greatest power lies in knowledge. Odin sacrificed one of his eyes for wisdom. He hung upon Yggdrasil for 9 days to gain the knowledge of the runes. He constantly seeks greater understanding, even at tremendous personal cost. Gandalf follows a remarkably similar path. His victories rarely come from overwhelming force. Instead, he succeeds through patience, counsel, and understanding. Both characters teach rather than command. Friends of birds. Perhaps one of the most charming similarities involves birds. Odin's faithful companions, Hugin and Munin, travel across the 9 realms, gathering knowledge before returning to whisper everything they have seen into the Allfather's ears. Gandalf, meanwhile, relies heavily upon the great eagles. Throughout The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, birds repeatedly serve as his eyes, messengers, and unexpected rescuers. While Tolkien never gives Gandalf literal ravens like Odin, the connection between wisdom and birds remains striking. Death and return. One of the strongest parallels comes through sacrifice. Odin hangs upon Yggdrasil between life and death to obtain wisdom for the benefit of others. Gandalf falls battling the Balrog beneath Moria. He dies and returns transformed as Gandalf the White. The stories are not identical, but both characters undergo death-like experiences before returning wiser, more powerful, and more significant than before. Each becomes a guide whose authority has been earned through suffering. A guide rather than a king. Neither Odin nor Gandalf seeks earthly kingship in the traditional sense. Odin certainly rules Asgard, yet much of his mythology focuses on wandering, advising heroes, and preparing others for what is to come. Likewise, Gandalf never desires the throne of Gondor or any earthly kingdom. His purpose is to guide others towards their own destiny. He inspires rather than dominates. Important differences. Despite all these similarities, Gandalf is not simply Odin with a different name. There are important differences. Odin can be manipulative. He is willing to deceive. He sometimes sacrifices others in pursuit of greater knowledge. His morality is complex. The negatives, though, are, to be fair, a byproduct of his fear of Ragnarok. Gandalf is generally more compassionate and selfless. His wisdom is guided by humility rather than ambition. In many ways, Gandalf reflects Tolkien's own Christian worldview just as much as he reflects Norse mythology. Rather than copying Odin, Tolkien transformed the wandering Allfather into a figure of hope, humility, and service. Tolkien's own inspiration. Tolkien never claimed Gandalf was literally Odin. Instead, he drew inspiration from many traditions. Norse mythology, Anglo-Saxon legend, Christian symbolism, European folklore. The result was something entirely new. Gandalf feels familiar because he carries echoes of ancient stories while becoming a character all of his own. That may be Tolkien's greatest achievement. Why the connection matters. Recognizing Odin's influence doesn't diminish Gandalf. If anything, it makes him even more fascinating. It reminds us that stories evolve. Ideas are passed from generation to generation. Ancient myths inspire medieval legends. Medieval legends inspire modern fantasy. Every storyteller builds upon those who came before. Conclusion. Was Gandalf inspired by Odin? Almost certainly. The wandering old man. The broad-brimmed hat. The staff. The love of wisdom. The connection to birds. The willingness to sacrifice for knowledge and for others. The similarities are simply too numerous to ignore. Yet Gandalf is far more than a copy of the Allfather. He is Tolkien's own creation, a character shaped by a love of Norse mythology, refined through Tolkien's imagination and enriched by his own beliefs and literary genius. Perhaps that is why Gandalf has become one of the greatest characters in fantasy literature. He carries with him the wisdom of ancient myths, while reminding us that the oldest stories are never truly forgotten. Like Odin himself, they simply return in new forms for each generation to discover. And perhaps that is the greatest magic of all. Tolkien was saddened to the fact that there was barely anything on English mythology, and allegedly that is one of the reasons he wrote The Lord of the Rings. So, if you like this video, then hit the like, and if you're new to the channel, then please do subscribe, because it'd be great to have you with us. So until next time, take care and be well.